How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We get live here and let some people file in.
That's kind of cool. Trying to get my headphones to work. They were working.
We got a little bit of time, so do what you got to do.
I got you.
There we go.
Yes, sir.
Cool. Let's see if chat's working. What's up, Brian?
I like that, man. That's really cool.
Warning: if you're faint of heart or easily offended, this show is not for you.
I don't give a damn about what you saying, bitch, you in the way. Closed case, my nigga beat the charge just like yesterday. In your face, I'ma go hard and make sure you see the cake. Keep the pace, ain't no one fucking with me, this not a race. Doing the shit that I want, I'm never gonna stop, I'm never gonna give in. Making my way to the top, I told you to ride, I told you to get in. Now you can't eat out my pot, it's filled to the top, and I'm about to dig in. You say I was doing you wrong.
Welcome to the Go Rogue Podcast. I'm joined tonight by, I'm trying to close all this crap out I don't need, Terrance Reed Sr. How you doing?
All right, how are you, Roger?
I'm good. I can't complain. Can't complain.
Man, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for having me on. I'm humbled by it. Thank you.
No problem. You know, I watch a lot of your posts and I'm like, man, he is thinking right in the same lines as a lot of people that are starting to think as far as it comes, you know, as it comes to the XL. And the more of those voices I feel like I can get out there into the community, I feel like the better off we are. Before we dig into, you know, the depth of the subject, tell people who you are, where you are, what you do.
Well, my name is Terrance Reed. I am the founder and basically the owner of Infamous Team Reed Bullies. I'm located in Owasso, Oklahoma. Okay. I would say that I got my first American Bully about 8 years ago. Champion Xena Rose. It wasn't, I never had no intentions on getting, I didn't even know what an American Bully was, to be honest with you. You know, I just start right there. You know, my to be honest with you, I grew up where in a town, small town called Okmulgee, Oklahoma, where I had a big cousin who was in the gang dogs. He was pretty known for the gang dogs, which made me like dogs, but I've always wanted to be different than everybody else. So most of my friends had, you know, pits, and I had me a Rottweiler, you know, just so I could be different. Well, right. You know, fast forward a few years, you know, into my adulthood. I'm grown now, you know, and my daughter wanted a dog, and I had a friend who had what I thought at the time was a pit bulldog. I was like, man, that's the baddest looking pit I'd ever seen in my life. I was like, I'll do one of those. And he said he would help me find one, but you know, he dragged his feet. And then I said, well, I'll find my own. And he was like, well, that's not a pit, it's American Bully. Well, right. I remember that I had a friend that I knew from the boxing realm, which is where Infamous Team Reed Bullies come from. And I remember him making posts about American Bully. And I was like, I heard that before. So I did him a favor. His name is actually Corey Jones, who was the owner of Grand Champion Techno. And at the time, Techno there was only 6 XL Grand Champions, but I didn't know any of this. So I just wanted to get a puppy for my daughter. So I reached out to him. He said, yeah, he showed me a picture of Xena Rose, and I went and picked her up, not knowing anything. And I remember going to his house, and I'm just seeing all of these trophies on his wall, and I was like, what have I gotten into? So I called my buddy, and I took a picture of the trophies and everything. And he literally told me, he said, let me see a picture of that dog again. I showed him a picture of the dog, and he asked me how much I was getting the dog for. And I didn't know. And then he told me, hurry up and get the dog and get down the street. So I get the dog and I get down the street, and I said, man, he kept saying it's a XL Grand Champion. There's only 6 XL Grand Champions in the world. And he was like, man, I think you got something good. So I get to the house and show it to my daughter, and I get to researching all of this stuff. And I start learning about the American Bully and everything, and dog shows and everything. Three months later, I ended up getting another male from him, which was the half sibling of her, which made them both offsprings of Grand Champions. And then he started mentoring me, telling me about line breeding and everything. But before I started breeding, I started going to the show ring. So to get to the nuance of what you're saying and everything, I had a very structurally sound, beautiful, majestic looking XL American Bully. And when I got into the XL ring in ABKC, I've never shown in anything but the ABKC. So when I got into the ring, she didn't get beat. Like, there's only like one male that beat her in the XL round. And she only got beat by one male XL, and she champed out. And after she champed out, I never could beat the variety. I always had success in the XL class, but I never could beat the variety, and me not knowing what's going on. And I kind of started noticing that my dog didn't really look like the ones that was beating me. So, and I know this is a long question to get to everything. So I began researching, and I started learning more about the XL Grand Champions. Mm-hmm. And Roger, one thing that I noticed, and I'm going to be brutally honest about some things. I think one of the biggest problems that we have in the American Bully community altogether is we have such a discord with each other and problems where we can't create the best looking dog because I don't like you, I don't like your program. And that was really prevalent in the XL American Bully community. The 2 biggest XL American Bully guys at the time, I won't do any name dropping, but they hated each other's guts.
Right.
But because I came in not knowing anything, didn't have clicks or anything, I made a rapport and a relationship with both of them. So I began trying to bring the blood together. So I took my champion female that was a Grand Champion, and I bred to Grand Champion Saki Bomb out of California with Fred Duran. Then I bred with Yokozuna. I had planned on breeding with XL Grand Champion Rick Ross, but I wasn't able to do that. So I bred to Yokozuna. And then I competed against Grand Champion XL Grand Champion Vibes Cartel. He wasn't a Grand Champion at the time, but I sparked a relationship with him and I bred him. So I'm thinking, well, how hard can this be? If I'm going to the best of the best, the chosen dogs that have won, then I just breed these 2 dogs like this and bam, I'll get it. But it don't work like that. Nope. So I started rethinking my process. I didn't want to keep on rambling on. I just wanted to give you a little brief how I got here. So,
right.
In a nutshell, I acquired probably, and I'm not trying to say this to brag or anything, but I do use it as bragging purposes, for marketing purposes. I acquired probably the most XL Grand Champion blood in the world. I live in Oklahoma. I traveled to California. I stayed in California because Saki Bomb was an older dog and I was concerned. So I stayed in California for a week and we would breed, skip a day, breed, skip a day, and breed Got 14 puppies off that litter. Got a very good looking dog that I call Bronx, that I think is the closest, 20 inches at the withers. Looks like a pocket if you look at them. But I have 14 puppies, and out of all of them, maybe 2 looked like I was getting there. So it was a very inconsistent litter because my female is like 22 inches at the wither. So then I traveled to Virginia Beach, where I bred to Yoko. Then I traveled to Killeen, Texas, a week apart, and bred to Vibes Cartel with the same results. And I started rethinking this. And then I spoke with a gentleman who had taken a techno daughter to Shamrock.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. Are we losing? I think we lost your audio.
Oh, can you? I can hear you. You can't hear me?
You're back now. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
The last thing I heard was Shamrock.
Shamrock. Well, I had a guy who had bought a techno daughter around the same time that I had, and features and the need to get extreme and how going to a standard may get you closer to these extreme features. And at first I was a little reluctant, because I felt like I want to make these XLs, but he offered me an opportunity to get Simone, and I got Simone. And when I saw Simone, that's when I started researching Shamrock and more standards. And then I saw Blue, and I had competed against Bistro, so I competed against a lot of excellent dogs. And then I started reevaluating it. And then Anthony Caesar, who I know, who he had called me one day, and he asked me if I would be willing to breed to his XL Grand Champion Chopper, which of course I'm gonna jump all over that. In that time, I built a relationship with him, and he did a breeding with your boy, Grand Champion 7, he was only a champion at that time. And I was intrigued by that. And I began to watch your page and learn about that. And when I saw the ped, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with her, but I got to get a female off of him, because I started redoing it. And then I got her. And at that time, I had a Shamrock stud credit aside. And then I decided to do the Izzy, who is the daughter of Grand Champion 7 to Shamrock. Now I know that a lot of people in the XL community was like, well, that's not an XL breeding, but I was like, I think I can introduce something that's a little bit different. And I'm gonna say this last part, then you can ask me any kind of question that you want. I watched your last podcast when you had Raul from QBN on there. Mm-hmm. And you guys was talking about something that I wasn't familiar with, the terminology. I understood the premise, but I wasn't familiar with the terminology. And you talked about hyper vigor, and I may not be pronouncing it right. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's but yeah, the vigor, and that's when you do an outcross between two dogs that are completely unrelated. Yeah.
Right. Well, what I noticed in the XL community, that we had a terminology called an anomaly when it came to the XL. And what I would say, 90% of the XL Grand Champions weren't bred to be XLs. They grew to XL status, and we call that an anomaly. Now, there are some people that don't really care for that terminology, but it wasn't an intention, but it grew past the standard, and it was an XL. So it was 20 inches, 21 inches, but it met all of those qualities and attributes to break through to become a grand champion, if that makes sense.
Right.
And what I figured out was this thing that we was calling an anomaly could probably be what you guys were talking about. Because the one thing about the XL Grand Champions is that there hadn't been, but recently, no XL Grand Champion had ever produced another XL Grand Champion. It had never been done. And the reality of the situation is there's not that many XL Grand Champions. I don't know. It might be 10 or 11 now, maybe. I don't know. But there's not that many of them. And the only one that has produced a Grand Champion is Grand Champion Chopper. And she's a female, which is a great feat. But she's standard, you know. So at that time, that's when I started reevaluating my approach and my direction. And I start to say, hey, I'm chasing inches, and maybe I shouldn't be chasing inches. Maybe I'm going about this the wrong way. That's when I started trying to find big standard, extreme looking dogs to go to females and try to take some of that legginess away, you know. Give me your thoughts. I know I'm running my mouth a lot, but you know, I ask you all the questions. Give me your thoughts, or when you look at the XL, what is the first thing that come in your mind when you look at the XLs, Roger?
Well, the XLs, to me, when I look at them, they're a body type that doesn't fit our breed. You know what I mean? They're a cathedral body frame, real tall chested, but not super wide chested. And the hard part is you're in a particular breed, and you tend to get, I don't know what you would call it, but you know, you tend to, in your breed, you concentrate on what your community calls for, right? And to you, everything looks good. But someone outside would look at that and go, well, if the pocket looks like this and the standard looks like this, then shouldn't the XL look like that? You know, that's to us, we think that's the way it should. You know, but the more I talk to people in the XL community, they were like, this is how the dog's supposed to look, which is a very tall dog that weighs a lot. Like they care about weight, they care about big ass heads, but like it doesn't fit the breed type. So I think, you know, the first time I was actually tuned in to what some people were starting to do was, I think I was talking to Anthony Caesar, and he was talking about, hey, I'm going to start breeding standard. I'm going to start breeding to these standards. We're going to start bringing this mass and bone in, and we're going to start pushing these standard dogs up to XL size, but we got to go down to get the mass and bone that we need to bring it back up.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%. But you know, and you guys spoke on this last week, where you know there's a market for this XL dog, you know, and majority of the community in the XL community could care less about the show ring. They want this wow factor dog, you know. They preach health, you know, and functionality, and I don't disagree with that at all. But I do also believe that that's sometimes smoke and mirrors to hide the fact that they can't get to the look that's required. Right. Like a lot of people may not like that. A lot, you know, I may get some DMs, or you know what I'm saying, some unfriends, but it's a fact. You know, I've been doing this for 8 years now, and there's no one who has bred to better XLs than I have and incorporated the blood in there, and I'm not seeing that. So I start having conversations with Anthony, and I start having conversations with other individuals and mentors, and that we're focusing on the wrong thing. We're focusing on inches. We're trying to create this XL based on inches, and we're chasing inches. Just like people say you shouldn't be chasing color, you should be chasing the structure and everything. I started thinking like we're chasing inches, and I'll give you my thought process on this, Roger. When you look at most XLs, there's a lot of space, and you just said that cathedral body, but there are some that's massive, you know, but then you lose other things. But when you look at an XL, there's a lot of space between the underbelly and the ground. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. And that's where the XL is getting its height. But what people don't understand, when you add that length from the legs, you're going to get a longer dog. Now, the last time I looked at the standards, it said that this dog should be a compact dog. Correct?
Yeah, for sure.
So if you add length by using the legs, then you're going to add length the other way. So in my mind, I feel like we're looking at it wrong. If we want to get that length, let's get it from the shoulders, from the muscles of the shoulders, the mass, the muscle mass. If you got an 18-inch dog, but it's got a lot of muscle on it, it's got about 2 inches of muscle on its shoulders. 18 plus 2 is what? 20.
Yeah.
You got you have a 20-inch dog that's got the head piece, that has the bone, that has the compactness, and it has the breed type. And if you put that dog next to, I don't care if it's a pocket or a standard, if the judge is correct, you should, and the structure is together, feet are right, eyes are right, angulation is right. If it has all of those other qualities, then there's no reason why you can't be competitive.
This is true. Hey, does your mic have an adjustment? You're just a little loud.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if there's a mic adjustment or.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
How about that? Is that better?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's one thing we observe when we're looking at the pocket and we look at the standard. So we look at the pocket and we say, how are we going to make a standard that looks like a pocket? So one thing we noticed was that depth of chest, right? It's
yes.
not only how broad the chest is, but how deep the chest is. So when their chest comes down, it actually gives the dog more of an illusion that it has shorter legs than it does. Like
right.
If the dog spreads out a little bit and gets away from its chest, you can see the length of the arm. But because the chest is so broad and deep and filled in, that when you're looking at them, their legs don't look so long. And that's why, I can post a photo of Seven and I can post a photo of Machiavelli. And a lot of people don't know that there's a drastic difference in height between those dogs. They think they're they think they're both pockets, and it's just because of that, the way they're set up in the front, because they're so wide and because the depth of their chest. Now, so I get some people, and there's been going around the community. So some people think he's a standard. They say he's a standard. It doesn't make a crap to me. The dog's 16.5 inches tall. So he's on the borderline of being either one. Technically, you want to be technical about it. He's a pocket, but he's a half inch from being a standard. So, at the end of the day, he's a standard. So that's the other thing I always look for. So when I've been so programmed by ABKC to like, this is what we want. We want this width. We want, this is how the dog should look. Should be compact and muscular and tight skin and short fur and all this other stuff. Right. And then I see an XL and I'm like, most of that doesn't fit. Like they generally have loose skin, the ratio isn't quite there for the look. But again, just like you said, not a lot of the people in the XL community are actually involved in showing. So what's their motivation to follow the standard when they don't really participate in showing?
And they're making money.
Yeah, and they're making money. So
and I don't let me just say this real quick. The last thing that I want to do is, because I have a lot of people in the XL community that I respect, and they're doing some outstanding breedings. They have some outstanding looking dogs. They're actually trying to, and like the Weddles, when I look at them and they have some of the blood that I have, and I notice what they're doing, it's impressive, because they're trying to meet that and try to do it in a strategic way. So, and then when I look at another gentleman by the name of Skits Dollars, and then there's another gentleman that named Dewan Hall, who is very strong who wants to show. And there's so many more. I know I'm missing a whole bunch of people, but there's so many more out there. So I don't want to just get on here and try to bash the XL community. Obviously, Antonio has been an OG in the game for years and has consistently, in my opinion, produced some outstanding XLs. But for me, I was looking for consistency. I was, and I feel like I did that. They're not XLs, but I feel like when I chose to take Izzy, who was a grand champion, Seven's daughter, and I bred to Shamrock. Man, magic happened. I feel like I broke a cheat code. You know, I've sent pictures to you and your wife, and you guys were, because I felt like I took the new school blood and the old school blood, and because they weren't, like you said, it was an outcross, and I bred the blood together because I paired it based on their attributes. You know, I looked at Izzy. I saw that Izzy had a nice rear. Now, is she all the way structurally together? No, I'll be the first one to say that she isn't all the way structurally together. But I knew where she may have not had structure, that Shamrock, who I put my hands on and watched, I just not looked at him from a picture. I actually have visually seen Shamrock, traveled to Georgia to go see Shamrock, tried to breed to him, but I missed my window and we had to repeat it. And then by that time, Izzy had came of age, and you saw it. I want to ask you your opinion. You saw what I did. You saw the puppies. When I wasn't showing everyone else, and I showed you, you and your wife saw it. You tell me, what did you think when you saw it? When you saw those pups?
I like the combo, and to be honest with you, when I have people that do that, so let's say you say, "Hey, I'm going to breed to this dog." Doesn't matter, doesn't? I mean, Shamrock could be anybody.
Right.
When it's a complete outcross, okay. Those are breedings that I'm like, you know, we're not going to get a lot when it comes to the DNA end of it, right? We're not getting a lot of stuff matching up here. We got two completely different dogs, two different bloods. Like, it may go back as far as Dax maybe before things start lining up. So it's always a gamble. Either it works or it doesn't, you know what I mean? So when you sent me the puppies, or even early on, I was like, okay, I can see it. Because again, you have to understand, if I showed you photos of Seven when he was that age, you'd never believe that he is what he is. You'd be like, there ain't no way that dog turned into that.
And that's funny because I researched him that right before you text me, and I just posted pictures of Seven as a puppy, and then I posted pictures of him as an adolescent and a current reel that you had, and you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, and it was weird. It was just in a matter of a couple of weeks. Like, we picked him up, I think he was like 7 weeks old, 7 or 8 weeks, and he weighed 7 pounds. And there was nothing outstanding about the bone he had or anything like that. But by the time he's 10, 11, maybe 12 weeks, all of a sudden it just started coming and coming and coming. You know what I mean? So it's tough when you see dogs when they show early on. Then you have a concern if they start showing a lot of mass early on there. You're like, oh my God, are they going to too much? Are they going to overdo? You know, and then you get too much on them, then they start to break down. They'll start paddling and doing all kind of weird shit. So you're almost happy when they're kind of a little bit slower when they're young, you know.
Right.
But with yours, I'm like, that's a good balance. Like, I was super surprised by that breeding. I you know, obviously Shamrock's a big dog, and Seven's a big dog. Right. Makes sense that your result's going to be some big ass dogs. That's all there is to it. But again, we're in that hybrid vigor range, you know, and so you've taken 2 different bloodlines, put them together, and you should get an exceptional version of the two things that you put together. Now, what's your plans for the breed for that litter later on? Like, you plan on doing some maybe inbreeding, line breeding? You know,
that's a great question, and I thought about that before I went into the breeding. And if you remember, when I was rambling on and off, I said that I had a Shamrock daughter that was also a techno granddaughter. Right. And initially, when I first got the Shamrock stud credit, I intended to line breed Shamrock back to its daughter. But I also had a stud credit with Tyrone. That's Molly Folks produced from Blue Note Kennels. Right. So at that time, I said, well, okay, I want to do my own line breeding. And I said, for so many years, I had techno as my common denominator. I said, moving forward, I'm gonna I'm going to change directions. I'm going to make Shamrock my common denominator to try to create me a consistent look. So at that moment, I decided to take Tyrone to the Shamrock daughter, which those puppies I have, they're a week apart.
Okay.
So I literally have these outstanding, beautiful looking dogs that really show the same type of results that I got with Izzy and Shamrock. I'm seeing those same results with Tyrone and Simone. And my goal is to show those dogs at the structure, evaluate these dogs, see what happens. I want to spend the next 2 to 3 years just showing, hopefully breaking through, accomplishing that grand champion title. And then I want to line breed these two dogs to each other and see if I can create a consistent look and a consistent litter, because now I'm no longer outcrossing. Plus, I also have a breeding with Golden Bear, with Simone, which is that Shamrock daughter again. So I'm going to bring another blood in there, but I've still got my common denominator, that Shamrock, and I just want to start line breeding and matching this blood together and give me a consistent look. What's your thoughts on that approach? I want to ask you.
So what I try not to do is I try not to water down, because what happens is anytime you water it down, anytime you go out, you risk the chance of losing everything you worked for. So when you've line bred, you line bred, you've maybe bred backwards a little bit to a grandfather, a cousin, or something like that, you're doubling up on these traits, and the puppies start to show it, right? Every time you step out, you wash that all away. You don't necessarily lose it all, but you half it, right?
You add to the gene pool.
Yeah, so you have a consistent look in your dog, but their genes are very tight. You're going to outcross, you're going to lose half of all that from those bigger dogs. Now, what you're hoping is you're maintaining a set of standard dogs. You're going to bring your XL in, and then what you're going to look for is that dog that added that little bit of height. Didn't lose. You don't want to lose too much, but added that little bit of height. Me, I'd probably then go back to the standard. That way I can double back up on those muscular traits, and then keep the best of that and just keep kind of crisscrossing. That way you're always keeping that big muscular dog in there, but always trying to bring more, and then
right.
In my case, I'm trying to keep two separate unrelated lines. That way I can create a series of hybrids, which are the breeding of the two separate lines, create a series of hybrids. Those hybrids get bred together, and then they create their own kind of, I don't call it a bloodline. Nobody wants to get all excited, but in that case, it's something unique. It's a combination of these two bloodlines and then multiple dogs off of that combination. So we bred Golden Child to Precious. So Precious is muscle tone, Golden Child's grim. And then we do the same thing with, who else do we do? But we're doing multiples. We keep a bunch of dogs behind, but we do multiples of grim to muscle tone, grim to muscle tone. We keep those hybrids, and then those hybrids will get bred together to try to bring those traits back together and double them up.
Right.
So I think that issue, and you probably know the breed better than I do, but if I'm trying to maintain muscle mass, I'm trying to maintain the shape, the chest depth, and all that stuff. I feel like every time you dip back into the XL blood, it's going to possibly wash some of that away. So you're going to be, for a while, dipping back into that standard to try to keep that.
And I want to be brutal. I want to be brutally honest with you. For years I categorized myself as an XL breeder, and I no longer want to put myself in a box and be categorized as an XL breeder. I want to categorize myself as an American Bully breeder. Okay. I don't care about inches anymore. I care about creating a dog that has the breed type and the functionality and the structure that everyone looks for, that can make me competitive in the ring. I don't care if I never get another XL. I don't care. I would be disappointed, but I don't care. I don't want to force it. I believe that an XL can come naturally.
Right.
If you do the right breeding. I feel like that's where people are getting these inconsistencies because they're trying to force something that's not natural.
Right.
It's not Mother Nature is not going to allow you to have a 24-inch dog and it be compact.
Right.
And if you do, then it's going to have health issues. Something's going to give that's going to hinder you from breaking through in the class. If you go to the Mastiff, oh yes, you're going to get the Mastiff bone. You're going to get the Mastiff rear, but you're also going to get the Mastiff feet. You're going to get the Mastiff wrinkles and droopiness, and you know, and you're not going to get exactly. And then we don't know what kind of temperament you're going to have.
Right.
So you know, so you may incorporate something, but you may sacrifice something else. So I don't want to be that guy known as an exclusive XL breeder.
Right.
I want to be that guy that's just breeding, doing common sense breedings, getting good results, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, like, you know, from the show scene, I'll tell you this. I was at a BRC show one time, and there was a guy there with an XL, and I wish I'd remember his name. It was a black tri XL male, and if you were sitting back, you know how they've got the rail all the way around. If you were sitting back where the rail was cutting off his legs, that was a bully. It was a bully all day.
Right.
When I approached him, I was like, "Holy shit, this is an XL. This is a big ass dog."
Yeah.
And actually, not knowing him, and I'm not really the most social person, believe it or not, but I went out of my way to go speak to that guy because, you know, I just wanted to encourage him and be like, this is where it's at with the XL. I love this. Like big bully head with the big exaggerated cheeks. I can't remember what the dog's name was. But a lot of us that go to shows, and you've probably seen this, our experience with the XL is outside of the ring. The guy that shows up, he's got the XL with the spike collar and the big logging chain. And if I'm standing there and I'm looking out in the ring and I'm watching a show and I hear a dog going off, guarantee I turn around, it's an XL. You know what I mean? And it just makes you think like, man, why do you have this dog in here? Like, it's causing trouble. You know what I mean? Like, it makes you, I'm afraid it turns people away from that particular dog. When in reality, you know, even me, it bothers me. I love the dog. I actually really like XLs. I really like to see them progress. And I love when I see dogs that are progressing. But those particular dogs that are at the show that are so raucous and untrained, and they just bring them in on a log and chain, you know what I mean? It's a bad look for it's a bad look for the XL.
Well, Roger, I'll say this, you know, most of the XLs that I have came in contact with and I've bred to, and I've came in contact with a lot of them. They have some of the best temperament, and I haven't had that experience a lot, but I can see how you could think that, because 9 times out of 10, if there's a dog barking and making a lot of noise and it's an XL, it's going to catch your attention quicker than this little Frenchie that's making the same amount of noise over there. So I can't say that I agree with you totally on that, and I gotta, you know, show love and respect to what I've seen, my experience. But I can see how you could possibly get that perception because you're in the show, and then everything you're saying is correct. You know, some of these XL guys could care less about the show, but they'll bring their dog in there because they got that wow factor. You know, that wow factor, that attention grabber. So and yeah, they'll have the spike. Also, all that's true. But I do believe, in my honest opinion, that you will notice that because of the wow factor dog, where there's a Frenchie over there making the same amount of noise and kicking up more dust than anybody, that won't even really, like, you know, even catch your attention. So I don't want to say that that's a common thing or a regular thing, but I see your point. But I do want to say that part on it.
itself is part of the problem, is that we and it's none of my business, to be honest. I'm a pocket standard breeder, right?
Right.
So what goes on in the XL community is none of my business anyway. But that was just my observation. But I think, and I talked to an XL breeder, and they say, "Oh no, we're just like you said. We've got dogs with great temperament. We got dogs with this and that." And like, we don't see them. I don't see them. Where are they?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I think that's the tough part. I think a lot of XLs I see in shows are also very young. They're very young dogs. Like, I'm not seeing a lot of older, more mature dogs come. And again, I think it falls in that range of, you're an established breeder. You haven't been involved in the ABKC up to this point, and you're happy with your dogs. They sell well. You've built a following. And why would you put your dog in a ring just for the judge to pass you over? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And tell you that you don't fit the picture. So
Exactly.
I 100% get it. I 100% get it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why I try to be encouraging anytime I hear somebody that's kind of deviating from that, and say, you know what? Because in my mind, when I hear XL breeders that are breeding standards and they're maintaining some standards, and then their intent is to breed up, what I feel like in essence you're doing is you're kind of starting all over again. You're just saying, you know what? We're going to go back down the standard, and we're going to get that shit that we need, and we're going to bring it back up. And I know at some level you'll probably have to incorporate your existing blood, obviously. But to me, it's encouraging, because I don't hear that often of XLs breeding down towards standards to try to get that mass. You know what I mean? They seem like they stay pretty tightly within their own community.
Right. And I mean, you're absolutely true. And, but it's funny because the ones that do it, they don't broadcast it because they don't want people to know they did it. There's a lot of secret sauce and stuff that goes on where I think one of the reasons that obviously I've caught your attention is because I don't get all on bully boards and things like that, or I don't jump on somebody's posts and make comments. I pretty much keep my vision and my direction and my opinion in my own lane, in my own world. But because we have sparked what I would consider a little bit of a relationship because of Izzy, you look at it and you say, wow, he's saying a lot of things. And I'm not, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I've been shunned for it. I'm not always, some people take what I'm saying as a personal attack because it contradicts everything that they're doing in their yard. And I get that, because it sounds like, I'm taking away from their money.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I feel like if what I'm doing, and I'm not saying what I'm doing is it's a theory. Right. It's a working theory. But if my working theory comes out to be correct, I feel like there's going to be a plethora of individuals that's going to come to me wanting to either start their yard over or try to improve their yard based on the blood that I have, based on my results.
Right.
Yeah.
I've talked to several breeders, XL breeders, some of them not necessarily on camera, just, personal conversations. And believe it or not, behind closed doors or quietly, this is happening a lot. A lot of people are doing this. They're not talking about it.
A lot
of people are doing it. And I think what's going to happen is eventually they're just going to pop out one day and they're going to be like, hey, this is the new XL. You know what I mean? Because it will look different. It will look different.
Yeah.
Either that, or you'll see kind of like what the pocket and the exotic kind of did, was it just kind of split off in two different directions.
It ventures off into its own thing.
And I wonder if that may be a possibility where, certain XL breeders are breeding more toward ABKC standard, where some guys have been breeding for 10, 15 years and they're not willing to change what they do. They want to do what they do. So you'll have an ABKC version of the XL, and then you'll have a community version of the XL, and they'll technically be different dogs.
Yes, I totally agree with that, and I've seen that. I've seen individuals that love the show ring, but no one wants to be a loser. Well, I don't want to be a loser. I can't speak for anybody else. I don't like losing. I'm very competitive in everything that I do in my life, and when you get all of the best XL, but you never got the big trophy, or what I'm saying, the best of breeds, or the best of show, and you're competitive, then you start, and you don't want to change what you're breeding, then you start looking for avenues to cheat the system by creating registries of your own, or creating your own lane, so you can get those accolades
Right.
that someone in the XL community may not be familiar with. So when you say, I'm XYZ, I'm XYZ champion, or I'm WL2 grand champion on that level right there. Oh, well, he's a grand champion, or he's a champion over here. And the people that don't know that, and then they buy dogs, and like I said, I know this is going to make some people mad, and I'm truly not trying to point fingers or criticize anyone. I'm just going to keep it real.
Right.
So then a person who's not very educated in the breed, but they saw this beautiful specimen of a dog, and then they get that dog, and then they want to go into the ABKC and Ram and be like, why my dog don't look like their dog. So they'll venture off into this other entity, and that's fine and dandy, but that's not what I want to do. And I'm not knocking anybody that's doing that, and I'm not trying to take away from their money or anything that they're trying to do. But there are people, you're correct. There are people who's desperately and strongly trying to make this work and come to the ABKC and make a splash and make an impact and get that respect that the XL community want to do. I know there's one young lady by the name of Christine Feldman, her and her husband Eric, who've been strong proponents in the XL community, who've gotten blood from Antonio and Rick Ross and dogs like that. That she's a diehard XL breeder, and that's what she wants to do. And I was the same way, but I feel like I was spinning my wheels. I'm gonna just be real.
Yeah,
I was spinning. It wasn't. I wasn't. I mean, I don't know any more that I can do. I was doing the top of the line breedings, some of the best dogs in the country. I traveled. I've spent hundreds. You know how it is. It's an expensive hobby.
That's right.
And I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. So I decided I humbled myself and decided to try something different.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I mean, it's still early. My pups are 4 weeks old and 3 weeks old, but I've had 9 litters, Roger, and I've had several puppies, evaluated several puppies, and I've never seen puppies like I have, and other people's puppies look like these puppies.
Right. Yeah. No, they're absolutely, and you can tell, like, it's pretty easy to tell, like, these are going to be bigger dogs. Now, they're going to be bigger standards, and I think, and that's the one thing, it seems to be consistent as of late, right? So now we've had a couple of XL breeder breedings with 7, but they're taking 7 to a standard dog that they already have in their yard, right? So what they're doing is they're trying to capture the blood, but have a dog that's a repeatable. They don't have to pay for 12 stud fees. They pay for one. They're breeded to another female. They're trying to catch a piece of it, and if they keep a stud or they keep several females. But now they have breed stock. They have breed stock that's in the standard realm. But not only that, I mean, it gives them the opportunity to, instead of breed one time to an XL female and just accept whatever you get, now you have the opportunity to breed to another standard female, and you have 8 puppies that you get to, look through and decide, okay, which one am I going to keep, because this is the component I'm going to start, adding to my breedings.
Right.
So yeah, that's, even QBN, that was kind of his plan. He had bought some standard and even some pocket blood that he incorporated into his yard. And I'm seeing that more and more now. Mind you, 2 years ago, this was hush hush. Like no one was wanting to talk about that.
No.
Nobody saying that. So they were contacting me. They were asking me questions. I've got lock-ins with XL breeders, but they're not putting it out there. They're not telling the whole community about it. They're just quietly doing it. You know what I mean? So it's this year, 2024. Now I'm starting to see XL breeders that aren't making it a secret anymore. They're making it obvious that this is what they're doing.
Right. And I've been saying it for about the last 3 years. That's why I wasn't really liked about it. I had some life things go on that caused me to have to stop breeding for about 1.5 years, 2 years, which was the best thing because it gave Izzy an opportunity to mature, which gave me the opportunity to take her to Shamrock. So that was the best thing. But I will also say this. There was a lot of XL breeders like most of the people that I started with in the XL game, they weren't getting the results that they wanted after the flavor of the month with tries kind of died out, and then when they was getting this beautiful puppy because it was a try or because it was a merle, it looked beautiful as a puppy, but then at 3 years old, it's like, all it is a try or all it is a merle. So a lot of people started either quitting or, like you said, they moved into a standard realm. I had been talking about this a lot. Now it don't seem so taboo and more people are talking about it. But I will say this because I want to get back on 7. I had this other working theory that I call out the gate pup. When you hear, I don't know, I know you're not really familiar in the XL world, but when you hear about the XLs, you hear individuals say, oh, I'm going through a lanky stage, I'm waiting for it to pop, in the next 2 years or the 3 years. And I'm like, well, golly, how long do I got to wait to see if this breeding that I've been trying to orchestrate for the 5 years, then I got to wait another 3 years to see if this dog is going to be what it's supposed to be. Now we got 8 years in the game just to find out it didn't work.
Right.
And there's a level of patience that you got to have, especially if you're trying to do what some may say is impossible in the XL realm and create this dog. You have to have a level of patience. You have to have a level of common sense, science, and long money. All of those things have to be incorporated. But when I did my research and I looked at this puppy 7, and I remember you and your wife was talking and was like, he wasn't anything. I think you said because I'm a stalker. I pay attention to stuff. I think you guys said that you bought him at a show.
No, we got him from Sam Leem.
Okay.
He was at one of his kennel partners' house. And so they did the breeding. So it's Remy the Hemi. And that was bred to Zero. And so Zero was an outcross. But he was still 50% Grim blood. And Remy the Hemi was actually Golden Child's sister. So inbred Grim.
So they was closely related.
Yeah, they were very close. They were technically half siblings is what they were.
Right.
But the infusion, which was so strange because you look at it, the infusion of Bark Wahlberg, which is actually a smaller dog.
Really?
Yeah. Bark Wahlberg is shorter and smaller than Zero. So I wouldn't necessarily insult the dog. He's beautiful. He's a nice dog. And Zero is really literally just a taller, bigger version of Bark Wahlberg.
Okay.
So you've got that Rocco taller blood, right? So the combination of the two, right, just created this bigger, taller version of Bark Wahlberg.
Bark. Yeah.
So it was a perfect combination of the two. You can look at Zero and you can see the Grim elements. You can look at him and you can see the Bark Wahlberg elements. So it was a great combination. And I don't know what Sam was thinking, when he decided to do the breeding, but taking Zero to Remy the Hemi, I don't know what was going through his mind, but it was obviously a smart move. Like it did exactly because he wants to take Zero and put even more extreme on it is what he wanted to do, obviously. And that's what happened, with 7. I remember we were faced. He was at, I think it was his niece's house or something. The puppies were there, and set up his phone FaceTime, and he set it on a picnic table back up against the house. And he said, "These are the two puppies I think that are the best." Right? One was a female, one was a male. They literally almost looked exactly the same. They almost looked exactly the same. The one that really kicked it for me was with 7, as he had a bit more like top skull, like his stop was a little more aggressive, had a little more top skull than she did. She had a little bit more of a layback, because body wise, when we did a direct comparison, we didn't really see that much between them. Like they look pretty much the same, but he definitely had a different shaped head, and I'm looking at Zero's head, and I'm looking at Remy the Hemi's head. So I'm looking, and I remember because we'd had him up and down on the picnic table so many times that we lost track of who was who. So when he put the male up there and we said, "Oh yeah, it's going to be that one. It's going to be that one." And he was like, "Man, I was really hoping that you would pick the male and not this female." And I'm like, "That dog has a wiener. Like that's the male." So we had got confused on which one was which. So when we got him, like I said, the weird part is we got another dog at the same time, Nomi Malone. She is a Magic Mike daughter, bred to one of Zero's litter mates. And we got him at the same time, and she towered over 7. I mean, they were within a week or two of each other, and she towered over 7. She was substantially taller than him. And it was just a month or so, and he blew right past her. Like she didn't gain height as fast as he did. He gained height way faster, got way bigger. To this day, he's a monster compared to her. But we got those 2 dogs because our intent was to breed. So it's Zero Bark Gibbon litter mate sister bred to Magic Mike, and then over here you got Zero bred to Remy the Hemi, and then we're going to bring that back together.
Okay.
So in keeping in that standard realm, because she's a standard female. So yeah, it was kind of weird. I've never seen a dog like that. I've never ever seen a dog that was so tiny when they were young and just blew up like that, just so fast. Even within a couple weeks, by the time we were in Daytona, we went to the Daytona show, and we took him down there to let Hannah and Jim see him. Even by the Daytona show, I had a video of him in our hotel room. There was a bag of a Nookshook in the background, and he was like jumping back and forth. And it's just a couple of weeks, and you could already see how broad his chest was and how much bone he had picked up within just a couple of weeks. And it just continued to just blow us away. This dog just keeps stacking it on and stacking it on. So, in the breeding process, we start to see what is he doing in his breeding.
That was my question.
Yeah, what is he doing in his breedings? So he has one grand champion son, 007. He was bred to a pocket female, produced pocket puppies. They're all pockets. And one chocolate male, very beautiful dog, grand champed pretty quickly with Hannah. Is doing extremely well. I think he's like 15 inches. I've never wicketed him, so I don't know, but I think he's around 15 inches. We've seen breedings to standard / classic females, and they get an improvement on their female. So they'll get a version of their female that's just bigger and heavier and more bone. And at the same time, we've seen to a standard / classic female, we've seen from pictures what looks like to me just a reproduction of 7 in a different coat color. This dog's blue, but I mean the head is dead on.
Is that the guy who repeated the breeding that didn't get the results the first time and then turned around and did it again and literally, is that the guy? You see, I'll be paying attention.
Yeah. Well, the weird part is he actually did get good results from the first breeding. He got a grand champion female, but it didn't produce 7-ish. It produced improvement on his female, and that female that was off that breeding was an improvement of his female. And there was a son born from that, and he was a big boy with a lot of bone. I don't know why he never did. She showed him a couple times, but he didn't really show him much. So when he ran it back, that's when the anomaly happened. You know what I mean? And I've never been much on running it twice. I run it once, doesn't work out. Next, I don't run it twice. So when he wanted to run it twice, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, if you want to, you want to. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then when he did it again, I was like, whoa, like, holy shit, no one could have expected that, And he could have very, very easy just got what he got the first time, which I think he was still happy with. But, that dog, that male that came from that was wild. It was just crazy. So what I'm noticing is that he tends to follow the female as far as height. If he's bred to a standard female, puppies are standards. If he's bred to a pocket, the puppies tend to be pocket.
Let me ask you this, Roger. Because it's so intriguing to hear about the transformation from 7. Are you seeing that being a pattern, or is 7 just one of those freak of nature dogs that just transform overnight, or does that blood actually react like that with his production as well?
Well, if we go back and we look at Grim stuff, typically when we breed the Grim stuff, you're going to see puppies that show mass and bone early, quick. Like they're born and you're like, holy shit, like these dogs are massive already. You know what I mean? And then it just depends. Every once in a while you'll do a breeding, and so you'll get more of like the Rocco style stuff, because obviously Grim was a Rocco son. So sometimes you're going to get that taller dog. So it was kind of mix up. But what we noticed is if you're line breeding with Grim, you're keeping it tighter to Grim, they tend to stay short. They tend to stay big. And that was one of the questions that it made me really think about you guys, because height is important. You have to keep to a certain height to be an XL. But if you start to inbreed, inbreeding depression, you start to lose height. The dogs get smaller and smaller and smaller.
Right.
So I imagine you guys are probably outcrossing a lot just to not lose that height. But unfortunately, that's not indicative of making a bigger, more massive dog, more massive bone, because typically that is achieved by line breeding, inbreeding, and very closely tight breeding, which typically that's what pocket and standard breeders are doing. They're keeping very close lines so they can maintain their breed type. They don't want to lose it.
Right. And I see that. I see the pockets. It's, you got the standard in the middle, but you got the pockets, on one side, and then you got the XLs. And it seems like the pockets run into the same problems that the XLs run into, where they breed themselves in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have to try to figure out the way to fix it, because, oh no, we don't want to go to a standard. We want to stay in the pocket, because once again, they're chasing inches. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to my premise. Like it's the same thing, but it's just from a different perspective. They're chasing declining inches, where the XLs are chasing increasing inches.
Yep.
And then it falls apart, where I feel like if you, and you just said it yourself, if you go to someone like a 7 who will do his impact, but also allow that female to do what she do, you can find yourself an equal medium, and then you can continue breeding on. And I think that I can't speak for the pockets, because I'm not really, familiar with a lot of pockets, but I'm becoming more familiar with pockets and stuff. Obviously I know Grim and Brim and Colossus. Of course you're going to know these dogs. I just came familiar with the dog named Trapzilla the other day. I was like, oh my God, you know what I'm saying? And then I continued to watch him, and no disrespect to Trapzilla, but then I saw 7 by Trapzilla, and I was like, 7 is something crazy. And then I saw a reel which I love your wife for it. This dude was talking all this noise, and she shut him down. She shut him down, and she said it in the most respectful way I've ever heard somebody check somebody in my life. But she had the dog to back it up,
right?
And getting back to your point, to get back to the nut and bolts of what I'm saying is, I feel like if we don't change the trajectory of the XL class, we're going to find ourselves in the same place as the extreme class.
Right.
Non-existent.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, and what I can say, but even though people tend to not think so, I feel like ABKC tends to be very sympathetic
And patient.
and very patient and very tolerant. And, because there are times I would be like, why in the hell are these dogs even here? Like, they don't fit breed type. They're not even close. Like, why are these dogs allowed to come in the ring?
Because they register them.
Well, that's a possibility. But the other thing is, then over a couple of years' time now, we're starting to see hints of people are like, hey, no, we're going to do this. They're going to start to try to change the dog. Well, when I hear breeders like you, it's like, hey, I'm going to dip down into the standard. I'm going to try to pull some of those traits up. I'm going to build a different kind of XL. If I was the registry, I'd be like, that's my man right there. That's why we're keeping them, because these guys are doing it. You know what I mean? They're working on it.
Right.
We've had that discussion about them getting rid of the extreme, and on two sides of things, I understand completely. But on the other side of things, I think they did the breed a huge disservice when they got rid of the extreme, even though they clearly stated we're getting rid of the extreme because every dog in their class should be extreme. And we don't need an extreme because the standard should be extreme and the pocket should be extreme.
All dogs should be extreme. So why should you have a class for extremes when that should be the characteristic of all dogs? They all should be extreme. Even a classic should have extreme features. I agree. That's But I will say that I feel like the extreme dogs that were around, and they were around before I got there. I do believe that the extreme dogs, and you tell me if you disagree with me or not, I do believe that those extreme dogs would have helped the XLs if they would have been breeding to the XLs. I think it would have gotten them closer a lot sooner if someone would have used the X. But I'm asking the question, what do you think?
Well, I think so, because again, I put a lot of weight on the female. I put a lot of weight on the female. And I tend to feel like if a stud has a particular thing that I want, but my female has the height I need, I don't feel like that stud's going to affect that height that much. I don't feel like he's going to, if I got a standard female and I breed to this male and he's under standard, he's just under standard and I breed to him, I don't feel like he's going to, all her puppies are going to come out pocket. No, I feel like, I put a lot of weight on my female to do what she's supposed to do. So I don't worry that much about it. That's the only thing. Like, I've been curious. Honestly, I've told people a couple of times, I said, I really feel like what I want to do, just to say I did it, was go out, keep my eyes out for a XL female that I feel like represents breed type or is not too loose skinned or too sloppy, just a good tight female, and just try that direct breeding myself. Just do it straight to 7 and see what happens.
I think you should.
I can't keep 20 some inch dogs. You know what I mean? These are some big ass dogs.
There's some big dogs. There's some big dogs.
They're so impressive. And the other thing is, we had talked about it last week. If we say, okay, well, if we look at the ratio of the pocket, its height to its width, head shape,
proportion.
Yeah. And then the standard is now there, slightly different, because it has to have longer legs, obviously.
Right.
But how wide would an XL have to be at that same ratio?
And that's an excellent question. And I'll just give you an example of a dog that I saw, one of the best looking representation of an XL American bully was a Grand Champion Techno. He had the headpiece, he had the wide chest, he had the rear, he had the top line, he had the bone. He didn't have I think one of his problems he didn't have the greatest ear cropping. I think they cut his ears short, not really knowing that his head was gonna swell as big as it did, and it just swole his ear. I mean, it just swallowed his ears. But when I tell you, um, he the one that made me fall in love with the XLs because he just exuded the breed type. I think at a year old, he had already champed out, and by the time he was a year and a half or 2 years, he had grand champion.
Right.
You know, but I feel like he was an anomaly. I feel like he may have had, that he was not ever bred to be an XL. That was a standard breeding with no desire to produce an XL. And Corey took the dog home because he was an awesome looking dog as a puppy. And he just grew past the standard class because he had a wide chest. And I couldn't give you measurements or anything like that. He had a wide chest. He had a lot of bone. He had a crazy rear, and he was compact, and he had the neck, and he had a huge head. See, there's no way. And this is what this, and you, once again, it's a statement, but it's a question. In my opinion, there's no way an XL is going to beat a pocket if that XL's head is not bigger than that pocket. If that XL's chest is not bigger than that pocket or don't have more bone, the XL has to have everything bigger and better to stand a chance.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, you'll see an XL that's 22. It's got the big chest. It might have the big chest, but then it's got a small tuck. And where the rear she gets bigger, then the rear becomes slender. And because that rear is slender, then there's no way. And then you see the XL community. I know I'm going to make some people mad. Then you see the XL community get mad because they'll look at this pocket who has this massive rear, but it's high. And they're like, why are you letting this pocket beat this? The structure on this pocket is bad versus this XL. Well, one of them, and I'm not saying that I agree with it. I'm not saying that I agree with that. But most people are going to tend to gravitate to the more massive looking dog with the bigger rear versus the dog with the slender rear, even though the top line is better.
Right. Yeah. And the weird part is you guys have a very unique situation where in the pocket realm and even much of the standard realm, our customers, not to show people, but the people that want to buy dogs, right? They want that dog to have mass and bone. They want extreme. They want big dogs. They could give a shit about that dog's rear. They don't care if it's a little bit high. They don't care. They don't care. They just want the dog that has the look. That in itself, the same way with the XL customer base. If the customers want the current dog, then you creating a dog that looks different is putting you out of business. And the same way, if a lot of the pocket breeders said, hey, we're gonna fix this top line, but in the process, you're gonna sacrifice breed type, and you're also gonna lose your entire customer base. The ABKC will give you trophies all day long when you bring in a dog with a flat top line. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, if you can't sell puppies to help fund your breeding program, you won't last long. Like you have to move puppies to buy dog food. Just is what it is. You have to pay for it.
Is what it is.
Breedings. So, and that was that kind of differentiating factor was, look, well, this is what the community wants, and this is what the ABKC wants. So then what we start to see after, I think it was year 2, maybe for me, we started to see that the ABKC was like, hey, these dogs have to have breed type. First, foremost, absolutely first. I don't care if this dog has a thick rear, a thick front, he's got a neck and a headpiece, and he's easty westy. If he meets all the other, and his feet are bad, but he is the most extreme dog in the, you know what I mean? Right. They try not to fault judge. So they're looking for first a dog that meets breed type, and their version of breed type, not XL's version of the XL community version of breed type. So the XL is at an absolute disadvantage the moment it walks into the ring because it's walking in with pockets and standards. It'll win its class, but it's going to take an absolute exceptional XL to beat those other class dogs, to go up against the standard in the pockets and beat them. And it's not going to be structure. It's not going to be structure. It's going to have to be mass and bone. Now, typically, this is the formula we use, and what we're looking for is if a dog's 15 inches, it should be 15 inches across the chest, dog square, and that as wide as he is tall. So if you have a 20-inch dog, then he needs to have a
20-inch chest.
Right. That's a lot of dog. I don't know if that's even possible.
That's a lot of dog. Well, I would literally say that's when you saw Techno, you saw that. When you even Saki Bomb. Now I saw an older version of Saki Bomb, and that was old. That was that old school Ichiban blood. That was blood from Gotti line. Ed Shepherd before he had gotten Dax and all of that. That was that dog right there. So they existed, but once again, they were anomalies. They weren't bred to be XLs.
Right.
And and I believe that Fred did a tremendous job taking that Saki Bomb blood, but Fred will be the first one to say it, and I don't want to speak to him, but he produced it duly. But it was Saki who was an XL bred to standards.
Okay.
And by doing that, he produced a very clean looking dog. Now, to his defense, who I used to be really good friends with Fred. To Fred's defense, in the XL community, there was a lot of people that started this debate. Was he a XL or was he a standard? And there was this big old debate, and if I was Fred, I just would have been like, what is he? I'd have been like an American bully. I wouldn't have even entertained these inches that they're talking about. He was a grand champion. He met the standard. He met what people wanted, but everybody was concerned about the inches.
Right.
What does it matter? But once again, it goes back to the theory that you're saying, and I'm not trying to talk about how he breed or anything like that, but from what I know from the history, that Saki had went to a lot of big standard females, and then he line bred and created Dooley, who was right at that borderline. Some say he was 20 inches. That's not for me to say, but he was a very complete, proportionate dog, however you want to put it. And I think that's what's important, and a lot of people are missing, if that makes sense. There was something else I wanted to ask you. I can't remember what it is. Go ahead though.
But I feel like, outside looking in, because I'm not an XL breeder, I don't know the history of the breed, but outside looking in, I feel like when we start to see the more ideal XL, it's going to be on the border of being a standard. It's going to be the shortest possible XL, I think is where you're going to find that. Just because you're breeding the standards, you're going to lose height, you're going to gain mass and bone. You're going to learn real quick that if you picked up weight, if you picked up mass and bone, and you took that directly back to an XL, you're probably going to lose it all.
You're going to lose it.
It's going to be a game of playing, of mixing in and out to try to get what you're looking for. And for a lot of generations, you're probably going to miss the mark. It's going to be under. It's going to be 18. It's going to be 17, and you're going to produce some standards for a while.
And I think that's the key. I think you really touched on a very good point. And I can't, like I said, I can't speak for anyone else. And somebody asked me, well, what are you trying to accomplish? Well, I'm trying to be in that middle, that sweet spot. Mm-hmm. I want to be on the big end of a standard and the low end of an XL.
Right.
See, my goal, Roger, this is my goal, and it's my dream. I want to have a standard, whether male or female, that's so big that everybody in the standard class is mad and telling me that I got an XL.
Right.
That's not, and they want me to go to the XL class because my dog is so massively bigger than their dog. Now it's a standard because I'm gonna do my due diligence and make sure I put the wicket on it because I want to make them look dumb.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if you can bring a standard dog into a standard ring and people are complaining that it's not, or you bring in an XL And people looking at this XL, Roger, and they're saying, "Oh, that's not an XL. That's a standard." You know, then that means you right at a sweet spot right there, because your dogs don't, the dogs that it's in the class, it's so much more impressive than their dogs that they don't want your dog beside their dog.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like if we try, so quit worrying, if we don't worry about this XL or that right there, but breed closer to the middle right there, you won't have to force the XL. You will get it once again, like I said earlier, you will get it naturally.
Right. Yeah, it'll happen eventually. Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, it's funny because, you know, I think what sparked all the debate with Seven, like he's the standard, he's the pocket, you know, back and forth, was early ABKC, before the dog is old enough to be in whatever class he's supposed to be in, right? They're all in the standard class.
They're all in the standard class.
And Seven champed out in the standard class because he wasn't old enough to be in whatever class he was supposed to be in. So by the time he was old enough to be split out into a class, he was in the champion class, which has no points. You know, it doesn't matter.
It has no, right.
And the funny thing is Precious did the exact same thing. Technically, Precious, which is a 14-inch female, is a standard champion. She's a grand champion, but at the time she champed as a standard because she was only, I think she was like 9 months or 8 months old when she champed or something like that. You know, by the time this dog's 10 months old, she's an ABKC grand champion. She's not even old enough to be in her own class yet.
See, that's my dream.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. I think if you can, and that's my mindset, and that's what I tell my team when people ask me what I'm looking for. I want my dog to be them champed out by the time they're 8 to 1 years old, maybe 13 or 14 months at the oldest. So by the time my dog is no older than 14 months, we're making our grand champion run going into the 2 years.
Right.
You know, and hopefully if you can achieve grand champion status at a younger age, like when you look at Seven has matured and got better. You know, I was looking at that one picture of Seven, which I posted, if you look at it earlier, and I said, I'd have took an adolescent, I'd have took a teenage Seven. Yeah. You know, with Seven, most people can't get an adolescent Seven, let alone what we seeing now. Right. You know, and if you can achieve, if you're waiting 2 years or 2.5 years, which I hear this all the time in the XL community, and then I'm going to start showing my dog, you're at a disadvantage already. Mm-hmm. You know, because you're competing with, you know, that's, let me give you an analogy. That's like saying, I want to run a mile, but I'm gonna wait till I'm 40 years old, and then you get up on the line with the 16-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
That 16-year-old don't smoke you.
Yeah.
Or you trying to, you know, you the law. Now I'm not saying that there are not some 40-year-olds that may be able to smoke a 16-year-old, but they're what we just call they're hybrid figure, or they're an anomaly. They're 1 in a million. They're a diamond in a rough. There's not something that you're going to see every day. And just because this 40-year-old, he go breed this other girl, that don't mean when he has a son that when he's 40, he's going to be able to run against a mile against a 16-year-old. It just, the laws of average don't work like that.
Right.
In my opinion.
Yeah, no, totally. And let me ask you, because I never really paid attention. So when an XL is, say, 9 months old, is it in the standard class, or do they have their own like young XL?
No, the XLs fall up under the same category as any other puppy. You know, when it's at that certain age, it's in the standard class. Okay. You know, and then once it gets that certain age, then it moves. But you even see then, because most XLs go through what they call a lanky stage. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's like, oh, well, they're going through their lanky stage. Well, I'm tired of going through lanky stages. I want out the gate puppy.
Right.
You know, and I feel like that's what I have now. I feel like I want to come out the gate and get an inkling or some sort of glimpse of the future.
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And I want to say this one last thing, you know. I think that people get caught up in just champing out, you know. The ease and once again, I'm going to step on some toes, but I'm gonna say it. If you got a good looking XL, the chances of you champing out is pretty easy.
Yeah.
You know, because there's such a inconsistency in the XL class and such, and once again, I'm not bashing the XLs, but then when you see subpar XLs against a very good looking XL, it's an easy choice because there are some people that's got some very good looking XLs. So it can give you this misconception that you're doing something because, well, my dog champed out, or I got this champ, all my dogs are champ, but that's where it stops at.
Right.
And then when you go against the rest of the class and you don't even come out with a ribbon,
right?
You know, then I think you should want to reevaluate your yard or rethink it if you're serious about the show ring. If you're not serious about the show ring and you're able to bring the consumer or the client into your house and they see your awards and your accolades and they're ready to throw you $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a puppy, hey, I ain't mad at you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and the other hard part is that, you know, when they're young, and I've had judges, and well, the first time this ever happened was actually with Precious, where a judge is looking at a dog that's 9 months old and considering it to give it a champion class win. They were super conflicted about that, right? Because they say, looking at a 9-month-old dog, I don't know what this dog's going to turn out to. And the last thing I want to do is put this dog on the highest pedestal, grand champ, and then it be at 2 years old, be so overdone that it can't even walk, right? And then what you have is you have a guy walking around saying, hey, my dog's a grand champion, and it's all jacked up. You know what I mean? So they were very cautious about moving her up. In that the grand champion class was much harder. She champed out quick, but when she got into the champion class, it was difficult. And it wasn't because she lacked breed type. It wasn't because she was awkward. It wasn't anything other than the fact that she was so young. So many judges told me, look, she's 9 months old. I have a hard time putting that on her at a young age. Now, the ones that did pick her, I'll just let you judges know, you were right. She was fine. She turned out great. She's just a bigger version. The weird part is, as I look at back when she grand champ, she's half the dog she is now. She's way bigger, way wider, way more massive.
So what's your thought? I want to know, how do you feel about that? Because I have mixed feelings about that. If my dog is meets the standards, I don't care how old he is. You know, one side of me says if my dog meets the standards and he's the best dog representation right now that I'm competing with right now, it doesn't matter how old. I think that you should award that dog so that's one side of it. But then I can see the other side of it too. What you saying, but is that the judges should they have that type of power to be trying to predict the future that they can't predict, and should they be just looking at what's in their face right now? So I want to know how you felt about that situation, because I see both sides.
Well, I have always kind of put myself in the judge's position. And the reason being is because I'm super critical of my own dogs.
Right.
So I know when my dog's out there in the ring, that judge couldn't possibly look at my dog and come to me and say, this is the problem with your dog, and me not know what he's talking. I know what he's looking at. I know what he's weighing out. I know the flaw he sees. I know the positives that he sees. And I know that in reality, if you're in a ring full of 3-year-olds, right, the judge is going to pick the best dog that showed up in that ring that day, right? And this, unfortunately, it's good and it's bad, because you'll find that people maneuver around certain shows. What'll happen is you have a dog, you can't beat this other dog. Every time you get in a ring with this dog, a dog beats you, right? Mm-hmm. So you pay attention and they say, hey, we're going to the Chicago show next week. Well, okay, we packed our shit and we went to the Florida show. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's what they do. Me, I never wanted to be like that. If the dog
Yes.
that was consistently beating me was going to Chicago, my ass was going to Chicago. Like
Right.
if I'm going to win, I want to win against the best that's available. I don't want to win because I'm just the best one that showed up. So, but unfortunately, there is that possibility that you could go to a little tiny show in Iowa and run it up and do well because Big Dog was somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the great thing about nationals is if you're in a zone, let's say you're in the Midwest and all you do is show in the Midwest, or you're in Florida and everyone you just show in Florida, at the end of the year, all these regional winners now are in the same place. So now you're
Right.
up against the best of the best. You're up against the leader from the South and the North and the Midwest. All those dogs come to the same place. So you have the opportunity to put yourself up against the best of the best in that case. But
Right.
no, I try to put myself in the judge's position. I've never been mad at a judge for not picking my dog. Matter of fact, there are many times that, you know, people will come to me, Dina will come to me, Hannah will come to me and be like, hey, you should show this dog. And I am so critical about whatever it is that's wrong with that dog. And I'm just like, no, I don't think we should show it.
Right.
At the end of the day, I learned a lesson from the judges, and the judges were like, no, I see positive traits in this dog that carry the breed forward. Yes, obviously I see the same thing you see, that there's something fundamentally, structurally, whatever wrong with the dog.
Right.
But we can't chop the dog down because of that. If the dog brings what the dog needs to be an American bully to the breed, then we're going to overlook whatever it is we don't like. If the dog's undershot, easty, westy, high reared, whatever, you know what I mean? Now, I think there's limits to that. So if the dog's so fundamentally flawed that it paddles really bad, or, you know, the rear, it kind of moves like a frog in the rear when it's trying to walk because it's just hips are messed up, you know, they're not going to overlook that kind of shit, you know,
Right.
But they're going to look at things that can be easily fixed in breeding, but just say, look at the dog and said, dude, does this dog as a whole, does it carry the breed forward? Does it add to the breed? So lots of times those are those more extreme, more muscled up dogs, because that is what we need. We desperately need to maintain in our breed. We lost it for a while. If you look 5 years ago, 6 years ago in the standard class, that's not the dog of today.
No.
Like, not even close. Some of these dogs in the standard class now are crazy.
It has. I didn't start breeding. I started showing first. So, you know, the first two dogs that I got, I let them mature, and then we spent a good 2 years just showing. And I champed out both of Techno's offsprings, and even, you know, I had a male that won best of breeds, you know, but he lacked substance. But he was, if you want to talk about structure, if there's a such thing as perfect, he had it. And his ring presence was off the Richter scale. So, and I think I had a judge who didn't get caught up in a lot of the other stuff, but saw a really good representation of the breed that was shown very well.
Right.
And he won best of breeds. But I also knew that because of the lack of stuff, the bone, he had a crazy rear. Like I said, you know, and because he didn't have the biggest head or the biggest spread, I knew that I was never going to break through to that grand champion. And I'm glad that I didn't, because I would have been, at the time I didn't know how to breed. If I'd still had him, I don't have him anymore, but if I'd have still had him the way that I think, I would have took him to a really big, thick, extreme standard female, and I think I would have had magic. But at the time, I was just trying to breed XL to XL, hoping that this XL could correct that or fix that. And I just started getting bigger and longer dogs. Very functionality, structure really good, tight feet, you know what I'm saying? Breed type there, but they lack that extreme features. So maybe I'm just naive. And I'm gonna say this too, Roger. I hear all the scuttlebutt that people say, well, it's the politics, or you know, the judges are cliques and the judges, all that. Well, I'm gonna be naive. But I truly believe in my heart until that if I bring the right dog, I don't care if nobody's never seen me before, never heard of me or whatever. But I believe that there's enough integrity in the ABKC somewhere. You know, I believe in the ABKC. I believe if I bring the right dog in there, obviously you're gonna always, let me say this, obviously you're gonna always have people that disagree or someone. That's just the nature of the human being. But I believe if you bring the right dog into the ring, you're gonna win.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
I'll go
and that's just how I feel. Go ahead.
I'll go this far. If you bring this is like, and I make it sound simple, but it's not. But literally, if you brought an XL that was, what's the minimum? 20 inches?
The minimum's 20. Yeah, 19 for a female, 20 for the male.
So if you brought a 20-inch male, he was, say, 19 inches across the chest, not quite exactly squared up, but close, right? Had a muzzle that was 1/3 the total length of the head. He had exaggerated shoulders, and he could literally he could move around. He didn't have to float. It doesn't have to be great, but he moved decently around the ring. That dog would destroy. And the reason I think so,
I agree.
The reason I think so is because the judges want to uplift a perfect example of the XL. They really want to. I do. If that dog showed up, that dog would probably win the whole show, right? Because it's such a rare example. It would be such a rare example that a judge would have no choice but to say, hey, we have to exalt this dog. We have to push this dog to show the community this is what the XL is supposed to look like.
Right.
So,
and I believe they exist. I will say this. I'm not saying that they're a unicorn and they don't exist. I believe that they exist, but they're somewhere on somebody's couch being loved on. That's not even in the ring. That's not even that the person that loved that dog don't care anything about breeding. They got floppy ears. The ears haven't been cropped. That dog is living its best life. The baddest XL right now that the world has ever seen is the biggest pet home dog that the world will never see.
That's right.
And I believe that exists.
Yep. And it's hard for, someone like me, and I know a lot of judges, I know a lot of individuals, we don't breed XLs, but we cheer for the XL. We want that dog to be part of the community. It's hard for us because we're on the outside. We don't understand the politics within your community. We don't understand the mindset of your community, right? We have our own mindset problems. Hey, 3 years ago, we were sharply divided in the standard class, sharply divided. There were people that were structure. That's what mattered to them. You had people that were just mass bone, bigger, wider dog. You know what I mean? We were sharply divided to the point where even there were judges. I knew if I brought one of my dogs into the ring, I could tell you which judge is not going to pick my dog. I don't even need to register for show 3 because he ain't even going to look at my dog. He don't like that. You know what I mean? So if you go to a show, you show up and you say, hey, show 1's this judge, show 2's this judge, show 3's this judge, show 4's this judge. We have a possibility. We could win 1, 2, and 4, but we're not going to win 3. We know we're not going to win 3. And it always rolls out like that. That judge prefers X in a dog. And if a dog doesn't have it, it's probably not going to win. End of the story. You know what I mean? There are some that prefer breed type. They want to see the mass and bone on that dog. They're going to overlook certain other things because that dog has that. So it's a tough situation because you feel like it's needed on both sides. And I'm talking bully, like standard bully sides. We still need those dogs with excellent structure, right? Because we need to maintain the cleanliness of our dogs. We need those dogs with the mass and bone. We need them. What we need is eventually to get them together into one dog. But if we're divided as a community and you over here say structure, and you refuse to breed to a dog of breed type, and over here you got a dog of breed type, but you refuse to breed to dogs with better structure because you don't want to lose breed type, we're not going to find a middle point. It's not going to come together. Like, we have to breed them together.
Well, let me ask you this, because you said that's where the class was at the time, and and so that makes me think that it's not like that now. So let me ask you a question. What did you got? Because that's basically the same thing that we have going on in the XL. Like, basically the issues are the same. They're just in a different class. So you said what did you guys do to remedy that or come together? What happened, or was it a dog? Was it that dog that brought it together? That's the question that I want to ask you.
Yeah. No, I think we're still to some part. I have people that I consider a friend of mine, and they're all about structure. Like they are structure, end of story. That's it. You know what I mean? But I respect their position. If that's what you want to do, then you do it. That's fine. You know, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to build breed type first. I'm going to lock down breed type first. Then I'm not going to go to an absolute dog that's lacking, but I'm going to go to a dog that has slightly better structure than my dog. I'm trying to catch the proper structure, but not sacrifice breed type. That's just all there is to it. More and more people, what you're starting to see is more and more dogs show up in the rings. The blues, the zeros, these dogs are showing up in a ring. They're bred to more massive dogs. They're a product of a more massive dog, but they have all the right parts. You know what I mean? They have everything.
Yeah.
They have the full package. And that's a product of a dog that had more mass and bone.
I know the first time I saw Blue, I was like, that is the poster child. You know, the first time I saw Blue and I, you know, and I'm looking at everything else and I'm seeing how he was shown, and I'm looking at his rear and I'm looking at his bone, and I was just looking at him, you know. I was like, if there was a poster child for an American bully, you know, he's it. And then I started seeing Zero, you know, and I started learning about Zero and things of that nature. And I'm like, I'm never beating these dogs.
Right.
You know, and you said it greatly, because sometimes I know I'll be stepping on toes with some of the things that I say on my post, and I keep it on my post. And I have friends that's in the XL class that I respect. You know, I love what they're doing. And I know sometimes they may think that this is a direct shot at them. And let me be clear. And I've said it on the post because I felt like people may think that at the end of the day, this is competition too. Let's not get it twisted. We competitive, you know. You're not going to hear Pepsi talk about Coca-Cola. You know, you're not going to see Burger King and Ronald McDonald holding hands and skipping through tulips. You're not going to, you know, you got people that like Ford over here and you got people that like Chevy over here, and they're never going to agree. They're never going to get along. So there's a level of competition that when I post certain things, of course, I'm going to try to get people to gravitate to what I'm trying to do. But at the end of the day, I don't never want anyone to take it personal what I'm doing, because 9 times out of 10, and I'm just being real with you, 9 times out of 10, if I respect an individual and I love what they're doing, because these dogs don't supply my lifestyle, my living. I don't live off my dogs. You know, my dogs don't take care of me. I take care of my dogs. But if I got an individual that I know that's passionate about this breed, and disclaimer, this don't mean to start hitting my DM and start hitting me up. But if I got somebody that I know that's passionate about this breed and I'm able to accomplish what I want, and I see they got a decent female and they want to breed to my dog, it's not even about money.
Right.
If we got, like you just said, if we got an opportunity to make a better dog, and I know you got a better dog, you got a female and I got the dog, and you understand, like, man, I see what you did, Terrence, and it makes sense, man. I think I'm willing to work with anybody. Right. You know, does that mean that I'm just going to start giving away stud credits or giving away puppies and stuff like that? No, because I put too much time and energy and everything into it. You see how hard I market. You know, I call it Team Reed TV for a reason. You know, there's a lot of people out here that has really good dogs. I have a very dear friend of mine who has some of the best dogs I've ever seen, but he sometimes get discouraged because he don't have that marketing or that promotion to bring the attention to the dogs that he wants. So sometimes he gets discouraged, but it takes a lot, you know. You guys are out there. You guys are showing your dogs and you're doing that. I think a lot of people think, well, I'll just buy me a dog and then I'll buy me a female and then we'll do this dog porn and then we're going to make all of this money, and I'll produce this grand champion, and it just don't work like that.
No.
And I think it was Raw that said it. Raw, I might not be pronouncing his name right, but QBN.
Okay.
The worst thing that can happen, the worst thing that happened is a new novice breeder can get lucky and hit the lottery in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That's the worst thing that can happen, because now they think it's easy.
Yeah.
And then they spend the rest of their dog career trying to repeat something that they did they got lucky. Well, this ain't hard at all. All you got to do is take this dog to this dog, and it's done. And then they figure out that it's not that easy.
Nope.
What do you think? What's your thought on that?
And in that discussion, I said that I really hope that when people, the first thing that happens to them is they fall flat on their face. It sounds mean to say that,
Right.
but the reality of it will ground you. It will make you understand that this ain't easy. This ain't a game. And even if you produce a top level dog, it don't mean you're going to be able to back it up. It don't mean you're going to be able to back it up, because you probably don't have the fundamental knowledge to understand what you really did in the first place. Like, you bred two dogs together because they look good.
Right.
Not really. And you produced something great, but can you tell me why it worked out?
Come on.
Because that dog has a great name, because everyone knows that dog. Because that's not what makes great dogs. It's not that the dog's got the hype. Like, hype means nothing, absolutely nothing. The only thing hype is beneficial for is selling puppies. That's it.
It's selling puppies. Exactly.
That, hype ain't worth a shit. It don't.
And I went into that. I had a grand champion techno daughter who champed out easily. Then I had a grand champion. They had different moms. Then I had a grand champion techno son. He champed out. So, man, you line breed them. You line breed them together. Well, if this is a grand champion and they bore off grand champion blood, and then I line breed them and I breed them together, then magic is going to happen. And then when it didn't happen, then I was like, well, okay, well, let me go to another grand champion, and I will never say that I didn't produce some solid, good looking dogs. I have a lot of dogs out there who people have used for foundation breedings, and have improved. And I feel like people who have bought dogs off of me early on in my career, if they be patient, and I've told people that got ready to buy dogs off of me, this is not the one. This I'm doing this breeding to see what this blood is going to do. Be patient, wait. But they get puppy fever. No, I want to get a dog. I like this dog right here. Okay, I'm not gonna make you not. I'm not gonna not take your money, But I'm telling you, and then they get the dog, and then I've had individuals that was just, I want a big dog. I want a big dog, and I'm literally telling them, from my lack of experience that I had, was like, man, my mentor said the taller the dog, the longer the dog. I don't know. I think this dog would be a better pick. No, man, I need to fix my dog because I have this standard dog, and I need to bring some inches onto him. And then they got that dog, and that dog wouldn't quit growing. Right. I had a dog that got to like 24 inches. It was long, lost breed type and everything, and they're all messed up. They're upset. Try to discredit me as a breeder and stuff like that. I was like, you picked the dog. I tried to tell you not to pick the dog. I'm new to it and everything, but I feel like I do have dogs out there that look very well. Most of them, if I put them in the XL class, they champ out, no problem. But they're not going to be grand champions. Right. I maybe have one or two dogs maybe that I think that I could break through and grand champion, but that's not what I want, Roger. I want that GRCH in front of my, and I want it to say ABKC.
Right.
And I want to do it consistently.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know.
And unfortunately, it takes time. Honestly, it may sound strange, but we've had several dogs that went on a run and they just won and they won and they won. They did well. They finally grand champed or champed out or whatever it was. And I'm never disillusioned on what I think a dog is capable of. I always underestimate what I think the dog is capable of. If I don't think the dog's grand champion material, I may champ it out and I might say, I'm not going to show it anymore. I don't think it has the capability. I don't think it can. So I try to stay grounded, but I feel like losing is a great thing. When I take what I think is the best thing I got and I put it in the ring and another man shows up with another dog and he and I lose, that's my motivation. Because not only am I looking at my own dog and saying, this is why my dog lost. I know what's wrong with my dog. I know it's positive. I know it's bad. All right. I'm going to look at that dog that beat me and I'm going to say, what was good about that dog? What does that dog possess that I need in my program? What was about that dog caused me to take an L? I'm grounded enough to know that if it was an opinion pick, like the judge just picked that dog because it's an opinion, he thought it was better, but in reality it wasn't. But I'm also smart enough to see that dog and say, oh, I see what that judge saw. I saw what that judge saw that was better about that dog. And it motivates me to go back and try to incorporate those types of things into my program. It's tough for you guys with XLs because you're always going to do really well in your class, but when you get into the point where you're up against the standards and the pockets, you're just getting parked, and and it's tough. It's got to be frustrating. I imagine a lot of people are like, you know what? Fuck it. I make money. I don't need to get abused every time I go out to a show and get stuck. I win the XL class, but then when I go up against the other dogs, I never win. And a lot of people just like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm gonna go back and do what I do because I like my dogs. My clients like my dogs. Other than ABKC, everyone else loves my dogs. So I'm just going to keep doing what I do, and I can fully understand that. In my opinion, it takes a sacrifice for certain breeders to say, I'm going to make a sacrifice, and I'm basically going to crap on, what I'm going to say, whatever for the community, whatever for my clients. I'm going to build ABKC's XL. I don't think that that's probably, like I said, I don't know that much about the community, but I feel like that's probably not a profitable approach. It may be the right thing to do, but I don't think that's the profitable approach.
Yeah. And I believe that there are several individuals who are trying to do it, but their approach, because I've been there, they're not going to get there.
Okay.
Been there, done that, tried that. Like they have the passion to want to do it, and they may, like I said, I feel like there are some really good dogs out there, and there's some really good breedings out there. And once again, I just gotta say, Antonio McClenny, who's been breeding XLs for a while, he's got a gift at doing it, and he produced an XL Grand Champion with the intention on producing an XL. His name was the real Rick Ross, and Rick Ross has a lot of offsprings, beautiful offsprings, beautiful representation. I know a lot of dogs off of Rick Ross that are phenomenal looking dogs. But now, does Rick Ross have any other offspring that's grand champions? It's possible that he may have some that could have been grand champions, but they haven't grand champion, and that's the dilemma that I see.
Right.
And if we don't try to figure out a way to fix that and just be realistic and be like, okay, that's not it. I get on some pages and I'll look at a dog, and because I'll never ever bash a person's dog publicly. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a judge. And to go back to your point that you were saying earlier, I showed for 2 years, straight, almost 3 years. I never went to a judge at the end of the show and asked them why they didn't pick my dog and they didn't give me the God's honest truth.
Right.
Not one time. And I think that, that's what a lot of individuals may need to do. There's a way to do it, respectfully and ask, or maybe if it's really busy, wait till the end of the show and then ask them, and they'll give you some criticisms or some things that work. And I've had people tell me that, you know, I had some of the best representations of XLs that they saw in the ring in a very long time, you know, structurally, health wise, and all of those things. But I didn't win a big trophy at the end,
Right.
you know.
And more than likely, you know, judges will be like, this is, you know, it was breed type. You know, the dog's head just not big enough.
Right.
Must be too long, or, you know, whatever it is.
Lack substance. I used to get that. Lack substance.
Yeah. Which is hard probably for you to accept when you're got like 110-pound dog or some shit. And you're like, what? The dog's like fucking huge. What do you mean he doesn't have substance? But
it was hard. It was hard to accept when I didn't understand.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but then when I began to understand and I was like, this dog lacks bone, or, you know, this dog has a slender rear, you know, right there. You know, it don't have that, I call it a ham hock, you know, that stifle with that thick rear, you know, It don't have that. Oh yeah, I got straight feet all day. I got cat feet all day, but it's at the end of a toothpick, you know, and that's me being overly critical of the dogs, because I see these dogs with this bone or this rear or this huge neck and shoulders and spread, you know, that's not even comparable to a blue, or not even comparable to 7.
Right.
You know, and I think it's necessary to do that, and that's my goal moving forward, you know. But
yep. And I feel like you probably had, like, because I mean, even I had it when, you know, probably the first year and a half we were in it. You kind of have like this, you know, if you ever watched The Matrix, the movie where, you know, they plug him in and he wakes up, he's like, I know Kung Fu. Like, all of a sudden, like, I had a vision of what I thought the American Bully was. And it's like, I left a show one day and I was like, oh, now I see it. I see what they're talking about. I see exactly what they're saying. I see it. You know what I mean? And I was in a unique position. And, you know, I tell the story to everyone because this doesn't happen to everyone. We happened to get into the American Bully at a time where the ABKC said, hey, we're going to push to make these dogs bigger. So one thing that happened was a lot of the dogs that were in the standard class got displaced into the classic class. I happened to be a new guy when that happened. And I met a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, because of that, because he had a classic female. She was essentially a smooth dog at the time, was what we considered a classic American Bully. You know what I mean? My female, exaggerated shoulders, exaggerated hips, very large head. You know, like, to me, I looked at her and I considered her a standard. Now, friends of mine that are a little more forward vision than I was at the time, they personally thought that she was classic. But I was a little insistent, and I said, no, I think she's a standard. So we put her in the standard class. Show 1's always the senior judge, right? So we go out for show 1. Senior judge kicks her out of the standard class, tells her to go to the pocket or go to the classic class. And I was like, all right. And I tell that story because it was in that moment that judge changed forever how I look at the dog. In that moment, what I thought was what it was, wasn't. And I didn't get mad about it. I wasn't mad at him. I wasn't upset. I didn't feel like he was singling me out, or, you know, he was wrong. You know what I mean? I took his position as a judge as valuable information. If he's a senior judge and he's my dog's not a standard, that it is a classic, then I'm going to take that for what he, you know what I mean? I'm going to take it for its value, for what he says it is.
And your program would have been totally different if you wouldn't had listened to that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I was convinced at that moment that she was the standard dog. She was a standard dog, and that's what the standard should look like. But the funny part is that now I have this female that's really and honestly kind of on the border, right? Even for that moment, she was kind of on the border. Maybe she wasn't a standard, but she sure as hell wasn't a classic compared to the classics that were in the ring. So when you put her in the classic class, she starts cleaning up. I mean, she's just winning,
Right.
winning. She almost champed. That was the first time we ever showed her. She almost champed out that day because for a classic, this is a big bitch. Like she's
Killing
got
it.
right. It exposed a it exposed the strategy, right? So a lot of people were like, hey, you know what? My standard is lacking compared to some of these other standards. So I'm just going to move my standard into the classic class. And
To try to champ out quicker.
yeah, I've seen dogs in the classic class, and I'm like, there ain't no way in hell that's a classic. You know what I mean? This dog have a melon for a head. The muzzle's like this long, super short muzzle, you know, and have exaggerated shoulders, but had no leg bone, right? Had no leg. And because it was lacking a leg bone, it couldn't be competitive in the standard class. So they just slid on into the classic class where they could be more competitive. And a lot of people for a long time exploited that. You know, they probably still do, to be honest with you. They still exploit that option. It's like, okay, my dog can't be competitive in this class, but it can be in that class. But only the standard and the classic have that option. Like if you're a pocket and you lack, you're just screwed. You're just not going to win. There's nowhere for you to go. There's no classic pocket class.
Right. Same thing with the XLs.
Yep, exactly. So that judge that day, I took it to heart. I mean, I took it to heart. When he said this is a classic, I wrote it in stone. On top of that, friends of mine, before we went in, you know, I had Hannah and Jim there, and Hannah was handling my girl for me. And Hannah was like, what do you think, Jim? And Jim was like, I think she's classic, you know? So now I've got people I trust, and I have a senior judge telling me this is not a standard. All right. And then that was it. From that moment on, my mind was changed. Like it just changed the whole trajectory of my breeding program. Thank God I didn't have 20 dogs at the time.
Right.
I would have had to reevaluate everything. So.
And I told people 5 years ago, and I'm on the third year right now, that my kennel was going to evolve. And what my kennel looked like now will not look what it will look the same in 5 years. I let that be very clear. Most people didn't know what that meant until they saw me start getting rid of dogs and doing breedings that was not the ordinary breedings that I do. And I know we coming close to getting ready to end this. So I want to say a few things to you before I get off here. First of all, you know, I want to thank you for this opportunity. This is not really something that I do on a regular basis, just because of, you know, the trolls and things like that. And the reason I came on here is because, for the simple fact, I want to better the American Bully class. I want people to learn from mistakes.
Uh-oh. It went black on us. Hopefully you just got a phone call. Sometimes when you get a phone call, it does that. Hopefully it'll be right back. No. Still got a good amount of people watching. Hey, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Obviously, this is a conversation I wanted to sit down with Terrence and kind of get his idea. I'm not, like I said, I'm not involved in the American XL American Bully world. So it's hard for me to, you know, comment or, you know, try to speak definitively about the dog. Obviously, it's none of my business. I'm not involved. So reaching out to these guys that breed these dogs and talk to them and see what their visions are, what their plans are, I think is a great thing. He might be coming back. I don't know if you can hear me. Jump out and jump back in. Let me message him real quick. Come back in. All right, let's try this. Boom. And we'll see. We'll get him right back here. We'll get him jump right back in. Hopefully that fixes him. But you know, a learning session for sure. And the funny thing is, they really, honestly, the XL breeders are going through the same thing that we go through all the time. We're constantly in the struggle to change the breed, to bring the breed in line with what we think the standard is. It's kind kind of the same thing. I think honestly they just have a little bit more work to do, in my opinion. You know, people may disagree, but let's see here. Sometimes I would type slower, would be more accurate. Hey, there he is.
There I go.
Wow, we got you.
Good,
I
good,
don't know
good.
if you got a phone call. Sometimes when people get phone calls, they get booted.
Yeah, it did. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm good. You rock
Okay.
it.
Yeah, I got a phone call, but you were saying something?
No,
Did you
no,
want
you go ahead and finish. You said you wanted to say something before we get.
Yeah, once again, before I got interrupted, I want to just say I appreciate you giving me, and this is not really something that I do on a regular basis. Like I said, I kind of keep to myself, but I also try to archive my thoughts. You know, that's what you've been seeing,
Mhm.
and so when I do accomplish what I want to accomplish, I want people to say that it wasn't happenstance or it wasn't. But I did not get on here to try to bash the Excel community or bash programs or people like that. This is strictly just my opinion on my experience and what I've seen throughout the years and the breedings that I've done and the research that I've done. I hope that what people can get from what I've said is to encourage them or motivate them or even possibly rethink their approach and just watch me. And if I'm wrong, you can be the first one to say, I told you so, you was wrong. But if I'm right and you see what I'm trying to do and I'm able to accomplish it, by all means, hit me up. I'm not the guy that's going to say I got the secret sauce or the cheat code, and I'm not willing to share it with you. I'll be
Right.
willing to share it for the betterment of the breed as a whole, because ultimately I love dogs and I love to do this. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. And I think, believe it or not, we all, in all classes, we all share that same struggle. At the end of the day, if the best dog in the ring, let's say the year blue grand champion, or not grand champ, but won nationals.
Nationals.
If you were a breeder and you said, my goal is to breed a blue, right? By the time you get the dogs together, you breed them, the dog grows up, you take it to the ring, even if you got a close facsimile of blue, right? You're 3 years behind, right? You had to invest 3 years just to try to create what's already in the ring. There was there's always a guy that's ahead of you, and he's always pushing to do better. You have to breed for 5 years out.
Yes.
Your breedings today should try to accomplish what you think the American bully will be in 5 years.
Exactly.
Because if you're breeding for today, you're going to pop out and you're going to be behind. You're going to realize that you just got left in the dust. There are guys out there produce dogs. I see more dogs right now at a year old that get posted on Facebook, and I'm like, damn, like that. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. More and more and more. I see now. It may just be because all the other people have blocked me or whatever. So all I'm seeing in these guys now. But I'm more and more impressed with the breed every single year, and it's a struggle for me, because if this is the bar and I need to try to shoot beyond the bar, you guys are making it harder every year for me to shoot beyond the bar, because it's getting better and better. So I don't want, anybody in that community that feels like, hey, this is what we had, and now all of a sudden we're going to have to revamp everything, that, you feel like because we all feel that way. We all feel that every day. We feel like we have to do something to try to improve the breed. So yeah, I just want to put that out there again. Yeah, no, our intention was just to kind of pick your brain a little bit and kind of get the idea of what you were thinking as far as what you were planning to do, because I know a lot of XL breeders are, some more quietly than others.
Right.
But to put that information, just hopefully another XL breeder might run across that and say, hey, you know what? This guy makes sense. Maybe I should start doing that. The more and more people we can get on that track, I feel like the better, well, number one, the better odds of actually producing it there is.
And I know that we breed not the same type of dogs,
Mm-hmm.
but I did want to ask you. You saw you. I think you. I think you have a good understanding what I'm trying to do, and saw the breedings that I've done, and you've seen, the short results, and I know you're excited about what it's going to look like in the future, because that's just the type of person that I know you are,
Mm-hmm.
just from the little time that I got to know you. But I am a person that's a sponge. So before I get out of here, I want some advice, even though I know we don't breed the same type, but I
Mm-hmm.
respect people's advice. And if you have any advice to give me, I know your wife gave me some great advice about embark testing, and I love the conversation that you and QBN had about COI and stuff like that. It's got me very intrigued and everything. Um, what advice, where I am right now, with you knowing where I'm trying to go in the future, um, advice do you have for me, Roger?
It's we have the advantage as far as the pocket and the standard goes, that there were guys that bred for tens of years before we came, and we had the opportunity with something as simple as money to go to him and take from him the best thing he ever produced. You know what I mean? And it's a huge advantage to us that we didn't have to start from ground zero. I talked to a lot of guys that have been in it for years, that have been in it back before it was even called an American Bully, and that dog was probably closer to the XL back then. You know what I mean? They were taller dogs.
Right.
They
Like
were,
Juan, you talking about like the Juan Gottis and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Right.
So if you look at the path they took, but it always started to become shorter. You see lots of inbreeding, shorter dog, shorter dog, shorter dog. You know what I mean? So it's just be mindful of your results. I think it's nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing any kind of breeding to a standard, see what you get. Be mindful of your results. Know when you've taken it too far. You say, okay, this breeding took it too far. We need to back up that next generation and then move that generation in a different direction, because this direction I went too far. But just, it's hard to shed the programming that your community around you has put in your head. And that is the hardest. That's the biggest challenge, is to set down and break yourself out of the box that your community put you in, and to say, I'm going to do this. And a lot of people are not going to agree with it, and they're going to hate my guts, and they're going to whatever, and I'm whatever. But at the end of the day, my goal is to produce a dog that I can proudly stand in an ABKC show ring and say this. And, and the judge is like, that's it. That's it right there. And what everyone ever says about you or around you, and trust me, we've been through it a couple times. Don't give a shit. Don't care. Literally don't care. People start drama, it sends more people to your profile. You get more popular. Like, literally, I'm not the kind of guy. I'm not a bold guy. I don't get on, you don't see me get on Facebook and necessarily bragging about the dogs. I use some kind of write up just to try to be, spicy or whatever, but everyone
Right.
knows that's not me, right? I'm not that kind of guy. I'm just not what do they call that? I don't know. I just don't have that kind of swagger. Some guys can just walk into a show and everyone's paying attention to what they're doing. You know
Right.
what I mean? They just grab people's attention. I'm not.
That charisma.
Yeah, I just don't have it. That's just not me. By career, I'm a computer guy, so I'm just like, more comfortable sitting at a desk with computer parts than I am around people. So it was hard for me to connect with the community in a meaningful way, because I'm just like a little weird, when it comes to that. I'm not really a sociable person. But what we found out is, man, when people came after us, it was nuts. It was just like, my I remember my Instagram was stuck at like 7,000 forever. Like, I could not get beyond that, right? And then when we got a dog that actually started making some noise, and people hated, as much as some people loved him, other people hated him. Man, that hate is power. People come, they came. That Instagram went from 7,000 to like 25,000
Wow.
quick, right? Because people want to see this dog everyone's talking about. What's this dog everyone's talking about? You know? And the only thing I ever did, I never came back with anything. If anybody said anything nasty about my dogs, I never said it came back. I would retort in my own way. If you said my dog was this, I would take a video of the dog doing whatever to prove you wrong, and I would just post it on my Facebook and move on and never said a word, you know? And that's why a lot of hate that's out there, you just don't let it get to you. If you're on a mission, stay on that mission. Just stay on that mission. Experiment, breed in every direction you feel like you need to breed, and just be mindful of the results. You know, too many people, I see them, he'll do a breeding and then they get the results from the breeding and they're like, well, you know, it's okay to get rid of every dog. It's okay to get rid of every one of them. If you didn't get what you wanted out of it, your goal, I see your goal in my head. I can see that dog. And I understand fully that if a dog falls short of your goal, it doesn't mean it doesn't fit someone else's.
Right.
You know what I mean? They could easily buy that dog from you and think it's the best thing in the world. Like that's the best damn XL.
And better their yard.
Yeah, and better and be a great tool for them.
Right.
But it's going to take you time. I honestly think it's going to take you a long time. You may get lucky. You know, we call it the anomaly. You know, that you did 2 breedings and all of a sudden, poof, shit popped out and it was right what you wanted it to be.
Right.
But I think that's the biggest thing for you and anybody that's dipping into this standard realm and trying to bring it back up. I feel like it's going to take a lot of patience. It's going to take a lot of patience, and you're going to feel like, man, it's just not working. Something's not working, you know. And then when you're not seeing the results you want to see, I imagine people are going to see, I told you so. I told you so, you know. Right. But just stay the course. Just stay the course. We're rooting for you. I can tell you right now, there's a lot of people in this community rooting for the XL. We want to see an XL that when you know that illustration, it's like the pocket, the standard, the XL, and they're all 3 side by side. They all look the same. Man, I would love nothing more to see a nationals where those 3 dogs are represented in the ring all together.
Oh,
that would be amazing.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing, and I appreciate it. And that motivates me and encourages me, you know, because I'm with you. You know, I think one of the reasons I'm respected, regardless what's going on, I try to stay drama free as much as possible. Sometimes it's impossible to not get in the drama, but for the most part, people respect me because I do try to stay out the drama, and I make it about the dogs, and I make it fun and enjoyable, and people see how much time and energy and love that I put in my dogs, like, you know. So once again, man, I just thank you for the opportunity. I thank you for even acknowledging or a little old peon like me who's fresh in this game, who's trying to do it. So it I can't express how much this opportunity means to me. You know, thank you.
Hey, no problem at all. I think, like I said, I need to get that message out there, and I don't care if you've been doing it 20 years or you've been doing it for 20 minutes. If I feel like you've got the vision in your head, I need to make sure that people find you. You know what I mean? And I think that's what it is. And you know, I've always taken the approach of this podcast as a sit-down conversation, just like if we were out to dinner somewhere and we're talking over dinner. Like, that's pretty much, I pick your brain, you pick mine. We just have a conversation, and I think it works out great. And I appreciate it. So let everybody know where they can find you. You're probably going to get some new fans. You may get some new haters. So make sure they know where to go.
Well, on my Instagram, it's Infamous Team Reed Bullies. I don't have an actual Facebook kennel page. It's just my name, Terrance Reed Sr. For most of my I do have a website, which is infamousteamreedbullies.com. I need to update it because my entire kennel has changed. After that, I can be reached on any one of those platforms at any time. Reach out to me. I try my best to respond to anybody that asks me a question, whether it's about Werner, my vision, my dogs, or anything. So at any time, if you put in Infamous Team Read Bullies on any kind of platform, I'll pop up at any time.
Awesome. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I had a good time.
Thank you, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate it. I'll be talking to you and sending you guys more pictures. And tell your lovely wife I said hello for me.
I absolutely will.
All right. Thank you.
All right, man. You have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for tonight. Hey, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and a lot of people hung on through the whole thing. And again, the motivation here was just to get in the mind of that XL breeder that's attempting to make that change, to make that shift in the breed. I don't know that much about the XL community, and I'm probably going to be reaching out to even more of them while we continue to talk to our standard and pocket breeders to get their perspective, to understand, where they're coming from, because I think it's a great conversation. So if you would, as always, give us a like, give us a share. We'd appreciate it. You guys have a good week. We'll see you next Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday.